Welcome to Skyns, episode 5. We are in the building. I'm here with the beautiful Lanamra.
Hi, everybody.
And my baby on the inside of her.
Yes.
Baby Skyns.
Baby Skyns.
So, we had our first guest last time. That was back to us. We're going to be bringing on
Critical and Loveleen.
Yeah, shout out to them.
Coming through.
That was really fun. Of course, we never count Ryan as a guest because Ryan's our producer.
Yes,
but
Ryan got the bread.
We all love Ryan. Ryan got the bread, aka Ryan Samuels, aka Black Ryan Peterson.
Oh, the AKAs, the aliases.
Yeah, I am Kyle Ingram, aka Kingram, aka Black Zeus, aka Voodoo Man, aka the Space Cowboy.
I'm Lanamra, Government Nikita.
Yeah. We all got names. So what I was saying was they were our first guests. We're going to be having more guests come on. We're halfway through the first season.
Our goal is 10 episodes.
10 episodes.
God willing, and everything goes well, and
we probably would
feel good.
We probably would have kept going, but she's pregnant. So
right.
we gotta once that baby gets here.
Energy is limited.
We're going to have to adjust, but we're going to get 10 episodes, and we will definitely be back after that. So we're halfway through our first season, and this is fire. I'm very happy with how things have been going.
Shout out to Mansa Media.
Shout out to Mansa Media on the production and this space and this whole idea. I've never really talked a lot about Mansa, so I think you should today. I think this is a good opportunity to talk about what Mansa Media is. So Mansa Media is group of 5 black men, me, Ryan, who have FI Media. Mm-hmm. Then there was Jay and Don, who own Elitism. Shout out to Elitism. She's repping her shirt.
Repping her shirt today.
They have a lifestyle brand called Elitism. You should check them out.
I got dreams too.
And then we met up with Apollo, who's over here today. He's back there in the corner. You guys can't see him, but he gave the fist bump. And we decided that we need a network for creators who want a podcast to have high quality, because we all know a lot of people who are interested in podcasting,
right?
Interested in producing podcasting, not just in listening to podcasts, but they feel like they have a lot to say, they have unique perspectives, and they want to get into it. And while especially a few years ago, the barrier to entry to podcasting was very low, as it's become more and more popular, it's become higher and higher in terms of what people are expecting when it comes to value and production, sound quality, and visual quality, because now podcasts are visual. People
production,
are
quality overall.
Yes. They're finding them through a YouTube or clips on Instagram. That's how most people find the podcast that they then want to listen to. So you have to have good quality. So a lot of people feel like, well, they can't do it because they don't know how to have the production, or it's too expensive or they don't have the skills. They don't know how to edit. They don't have the time to edit. So we saw that need, and we said, with Ryan and I's production and background in production and our ability to produce, we thought it'd be a good way to build a business. I mean, there's a need, and plus, as black guys, we want to support black creators as well.
Right.
I think that there was a good avenue there. So we created Mansa Media, and that's where we've been shooting all our podcasts. We've been shooting the new episodes of Ryan Got the Bread. We've been shooting Hot or Flop, which is Apollo's podcast, is for talking about the promotion side of promoting events. They just had this huge thing with Polo G. We've been shooting No PTO Days, which is Jay and Don's their podcast, shooting Amazonian Nights, which is Bianca's podcast. So we've been doing a lot of stuff here. We're planning on growing. We're planning on moving. If you see me sweating, because this spot didn't got no AC, and it's not summertime yet, so we wasn't prepared for that. But we're growing, and this is a process. And you guys if you're watching now, you're gonna get to see the growth. You're gonna get to see how we evolve. And if you're interested in podcasting, feel free to hit us up, follow Mansa Media, and check that out. So yeah, that was the first real Mansa Media plug I've ever done. We've just been talking about things, but I wanted to talk about that and what that means to me as part of that team.
And really shout out to y'all for, doing this, and the production quality is great.
Thank you. We're doing
all the shows look good.
People do enjoy coming to the space, even though we have we have things we want to improve on. I think that a lot of people are happy with the result.
It's a great start, though.
Yeah, I think they're happy with the products. I'm happy with the quality. I think that it's top tier, especially in the tri-state area. I mean, you know, you can't get much better than what we're doing in terms of the outcome and the look and sound of it, the result of it. So, you know, we're still refining some other things, but that's how it goes, man. You know, we're doing it literally from the mud, like, you know.
Yeah, you're getting it to see it from scratch.
I'm still paying my entry fee. I dropped the deposit today. So, you know, but it's from the mud. We're doing it though. So I'm proud of those guys. Glad to be a part of the team. I'm glad. I think it's the right move. I think we're in the right space. We need to uplift our voices and have the ability to, you know, compete. You know, you have to compete in terms of quality. So that's what we're doing.
Wonderful.
All right, so
shout out to Mansa.
Yeah, shout out to the team. So let's get into some topics.
Yeah.
You see me wearing the Colin Kaepernick shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the Kaepernick shirt.
The black fist is out.
The black fist is out. It's been, you know, so with our guests, right? I try to highlight our guest specialties. And funny enough though, Loveline was very about it.
Yeah.
Which, if you watch the episode, you know, I did not do my research.
We didn't expect that.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but I was very happy to see it. You know,
yeah,
because I known Crit for a while, and but I didn't know her like that. Like I seen her out at some events, but we never really. And when she interviewed Bianca, they were talking like her music background and stuff.
Right.
So I didn't know that much about her. I didn't know that's where she was coming from. So I was happy to see that. But usually when I'm talking to guests, I try to stay in what their wheelhouse is and what they're comfortable talking about. I don't want them to ever feel pressured to, you know, go into a space where they're not knowledgeable. That's not really my, you know. Now, not that I would avoid controversy if there's controversy in their space or there's something that I think they should know about in their field. But, you know, if politics and police brutality is not in your field and it could alienate your fan base, I wouldn't do that to you. But it was, you know, with last week, there was so much going on in terms of violence against black people and the system. And I wanted to talk about that. And I know you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, I think, well, for me, I wanted to touch on the Chauvin verdict.
Yeah.
And, yeah, you know, like, for me, it's kind of a mixed bag of emotions in terms of my response to it, how I feel about it. Because on the one hand, well, it is, I'm sure a lot of black people feel good about seeing someone finally being brought to justice for,
it's a novel feeling,
you know, murdering a black man who didn't deserve, like, no one deserves that. But really what we saw, that was just like brutal. Yeah. Right. So
there's a modern day lynching on camera.
To finally see someone be brought to justice, an officer be brought to justice for it. I'm sure there was a sigh of relief. Maybe for some people, they felt more confidence in the system. For me, on the other hand, I kind of look at it like this is just one person.
Right.
The system is so broken. And even after that, like, it came across some videos of this dude, what, I can't remember. I can never remember names. But this man who is employed to train FBI agents, the police officers and stuff like that. And for me, it was very disturbing because it was just a glimpse of what their training is like. And it kind of felt like watching like a fly on the wall, like a cult, right? Like them being indoctrinated. And he said things along the lines of, you know,
he was talking about, this is what he said. And I had seen him a few years ago on John Oliver. He said that, you know, a lot of officers have reported.
I wish I could remember his name.
Look it up. Look on you got Twitter before your phone dies. He had said stuff like, if a lot of officers reported that after they shot somebody or after they killed somebody, they went home and they had the best sex of their lives.
Yes.
Like, he took it to,
and their spouses agree.
Yeah, and their spouses agree. And that, you know, he took it to a primal level of, like, you know, when you kill somebody, his thing was you shouldn't feel bad about doing that because it was going to be either you or him and you made it home, and you should feel proud about murdering people. And he didn't say murder. He said taking someone's life.
Right.
But his entire presentation, it was about how police are predatory, how you know, how they should be using these skills to, you know, they should be trained to kill. And while I don't know if that's how, I I would hope that that's not how most trainings go. This guy does exist. There is an element of that. And that is a really scary thought to have to question whether or not the police that you're dealing with in a situation have had that training or fall in line with that line of thinking of being.
It's basically churning out sociopaths.
Right.
Right. So it's like you have, and this is the other thing for me, when you're talking about policing, my question with dealing with that is who are the types of people who want to be police officers?
Right.
Right. And even the ones that go in thinking they're going to be different, make a difference or whatever, you're one drop in a whole pond.
Right.
That is the system. And people go in and they soon find out that it's next to impossible to make the shift that they think should be made. And most people just fall in line.
So the officers that do try to do good, right? Or do like, there was that woman officer who stopped the policeman from.
Oh, yeah. We have that one.
Yeah. From
in
killing,
upstate New York somewhere.
Right. And she was fired.
Yeah, she was fired, and then she was also charged with assaulting her fellow officer because she stopped him
from killing
a
Basically
black man.
doing the Chauvin.
The same thing.
Right. She stopped him from killing the black dude he was kneeling on their neck, and she stopped it so that man survived, but then she was fired and
she
charged.
Lost her pension. She was like weeks out from retiring. Right. Lost her pension, and this has been like 14 years that she's been fighting this battle.
Right.
And the only thing that made her win her case, because she had a case against the police department, was George Floyd's murder.
Right.
And the outcome of this trial.
So when I look at the Chauvin trial, right, I know there was a sigh of relief and a lot of people thought it was novel, but what I'm worried about is that people will be satisfied with that and not understand that they really had no choice unless they wanted a full-blown revolt. Because they saw what happened when they died. If this verdict didn't go that way, they knew that everyone, like cities were already preparing,
right,
for everyone to hit the streets, and people were going to be coming out more. I know
prepared. They said in Minneapolis they had businesses boarded up.
It wasn't just Minneapolis, even Philadelphia Philadelphia had the officers out. Like in cities across the country, they were preparing for black people to be upset,
to protest
if this verdict did not go that way. It was not, so. But what they're doing, right, is offering up, well, here's Chauvin, and things are changing.
He's really a sacrificial lamb. To me, he's symbolic.
But things are not changing. In the time since his trial has been going on, there's been like 6 national that's what I'm saying, national news stories, not just local news stories, because these things happen all the time. There's harassment that happens all the time. There's a lot of altercations with police that we don't necessarily see in the news, where the outcome isn't violence, the outcome isn't death, the outcome isn't even brutality, it's just harassment. And those things don't make the news. Now, there are many more, now with the reason that you've been hearing about it more frequently is because we have social media, people have phones.
Right.
And it's
There's
been
usually
happening.
A bystander when you hear about something really quickly in succession to the time that it actually happened is because there's bystander video of the incident.
My boy Jordan said, like, yo, I hope that my life isn't dependent on someone having my life, or justice isn't dependent on someone having a phone out.
Right.
And that's how a lot of black people feel and continue to feel. And the only reason that we've been hearing this and having this discussion, recently is because of the advent of cell phones and people having access to documenting what's been happening. Because even with body cams, sometimes they just don't release it.
They don't. And since his trial, we've seen incidents being talked about that happened in 2019, 2018.
Well, with him, because I know you had brought up that he had a past of history of doing the same thing.
The most recent story that I was seeing, well, this was like a few days ago or maybe last week or something, that the DOJ was looking at opening another case against him because he had, back in like 2007 or something like that,
done the same thing.
He went into, there was a domestic violence call, a mom and her 14-year-old son. They responded. He went in, he hit the child, made the child bleed, choked the child until the child was unconscious. Right. And then also did the same thing that he did to George Floyd. And the child was saying the same thing. I can't breathe. And it was just a total excessive use of force in the situation.
That's his MO.
Right.
his thing.
And this was my point, with the Facebook post that I made, is that before you get here where an officer is on video killing somebody, there's a history that has been overlooked. And even in his case, they said he has like somewhere between 14 and 20 incidents of complaints on
but
his
they don't
record.
they don't take them
and
serious.
only one instance of being actually reprimanded, and that reprimand was like a warning, a written warning or something like that. There's no real repercussions for the bad behavior.
There's no repercussions for bad behavior, and there's no repercussions for killing black people.
Right.
Which leads me into, so there was the Ma'Khia. I don't want to say her name right.
Ma'Khia Bryant.
Ma'Khia Bryant. And that, so there's been a lot of controversy with that amongst black people. Mm-hmm. And I know that you didn't want to bring it up because you don't want to have arguments. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because if you're aware of that, so what happened with that situation was, so far from what we've heard, because I don't know if they've released any more details officially, what the story that I have been told was, and I've read and I've seen, was that she was being assaulted.
Right. So the background that I've seen so far is basically this is a child in foster care. And these people that she was in an altercation with were former, they just aged out of foster care.
Right.
A few years or whatever the case may be. And they came back. They had some beef with her over a chore or something in the house that she didn't do.
Right.
And they took to violence, right? Like trying to jump her or whatever.
They're trying to jump her.
And the foster mom was saying that, there's been arguments and stuff like that, but she never thought it would get to that point. But also, from what I understand, Ma'Khia has mental health, concerns, whether it's emotional or whatever.
Sure.
I could be wrong, but this is from what I read. So, and that's a frequent occurrence for children in foster care because it's trauma.
Go through what happened.
Right.
Let's get through what happened.
They were attacking her apparently, and in an effort to defend herself, she got a knife.
Before that, she called the cops.
Right. She called the cops. By the time the cops got there, she had a knife. She was.
So let's paint the scene. These two girls came back to her foster home, were attacking her.
But they weren't girls anymore. These are grown women
yes,
now.
Grown women. She's 16. Right. They're like 20 something, whatever. In my mind, they're all girls. Like this is, and I'll tell you why. They're all girls. It doesn't matter what their age is. They were clearly not mature enough to be acting like an adult. So they're all these girls. They come back and they want to fight her over some foolishness. She calls the cops because she is afraid of what's happening. She gets a knife from the kitchen to defend herself. When the cops pull up, chaos is ensuing. Now the cop pulls up. There's a man who I'm not sure if that was her dad. I don't know who that man was. He's kicking somebody.
Maybe her foster dad or something.
And there's a girl that fell, and it looks like Ma'Khia is going to stab this girl on the car. I'm describing the video. If you don't want to see more black violence with black bodies, which we always see, I fully understand. I'm just describing it so you understand the scene and why there was controversy, because that plays a part. The cop made a split-second decision and shot the knife-wielding woman, which was Ma'Khia Bryant, who called the girl who was Ma'Khia Bryant, who
4 times
in the chest, fatally wounding her, killing her.
Right.
Now, the thing with this is, some people are saying he had no choice. He had no option. There was no other way for him to save this other girl's life. Now, you could argue that point all day. You could say, well, maybe he could have tackled her. Maybe he could have used a taser. You could have all these arguments. My point in why I get enraged at this, there's 3 reasons why I get enraged at this. 1, the violence against black people from police is so standard at this point that I don't care what you think, you can't take the police's side. And even by saying, I don't know what she thought, if that's your thought, have that conversation in private. Do not do that publicly. We cannot at one instant say we need to change this entire system because of how they treat us, and then say, well, this one was okay.
Right.
You can't do that. This was the result of the same system of violence against black people.
And for people to believe that the police showed up and their first thought was, let me save this other black person.
Right. Well, this is what I'm saying. There's so much distrust in, I dropped my phone. Hold on. For you guys listening, if you could see it if you weren't. But for black people, there's so much distrust of the system that's not what we think. We don't think that he was trying to save a girl.
That's what they want us to believe.
Sure.
And some people have bought into it.
Some people believe it. And this is the second thing. We have to go harder as black culture. Everybody, we have to go harder for black women. There's people who said, if your daughter was about to be stabbed, wouldn't you want the cop to shoot the other girl? My thought is, what if it's your girl who called the cops?
Right.
And is trying to defend herself, and then she gets stabbed. You need to have.
Then she gets shot.
Yeah, well, then she gets shot because she's trying to defend herself with a knife.
I literally saw people on your status saying, well, if it was my daughter, she'd have to get shot.
So
and you'd be okay with your child being dead?
I don't understand
no?
this. I don't understand this thought at all. If my daughter is defending herself, if anybody I know is defending themselves and has a weapon to do so, don't shoot them. They're defending themselves. Now, I understand the thought, well, the cop doesn't know what's going on. Find out what's going on, officer. What do we expect?
Even if he didn't have this, okay.
What do we expect our officers to do? Our expectations are ridiculously low for what we expect officers to do.
I'm not going to be devil's advocate, but if you're someone who is moderate about policing, then you can say, why didn't he, if he's such a great marksman and was able to shoot her 4 times in the chest, why couldn't he shoot her in the leg? So
this is what happened.
Quote, unquote. I'm saying this is what someone who is moderate should be saying.
But that's not what they say, because moderates who think like that are usually people who have shot firearms. This is something that, and this is where I lean on Ryan's expertise. And me and Ryan had a very heated exchange about this. But this is where I lean on Ryan's expertise because he's a veteran. He shot more guns than I ever have.
Right.
He understands guns. And when we went to shoot guns, I went with him. I understand that's not very easy to do. It's not easy to shoot a moving target, let alone, and that's not what they're trained to do. And I understand why they're not trained that way. I get that. My point is, why is his gun drawn? You don't know what's happening.
Right.
The amount of time since he pulled up, got out his vehicle, the first thing he did was draw his gun when he sees black violence. And this is what my point is about.
I don't even like the term black violence.
No, it is black violence, because when they pull up to white violent situations, that is not the same thing they do. That's not now. It's not to say that they don't use violence against white people, because they do. Now, people say to me, well, what about the 5,000 or 5,500 people who have been killed by police that are white this year?
That's a problem too.
White people, are you not upset about this? You think that's okay?
a problem too?
You think it's cool
because it's likely disproportionate that poor white people are experiencing that violence at the hands of police.
And this is what I'm saying. It's the entire system of policing that we expect that violence has to happen to us for minimal crimes. So I want to get back to the second point because I didn't get to finish it. The second point is, we as black culture, and I'm speaking to black men here, and I don't care if you're offended, we have to do a better job of protecting our black women, having their backs the way they have ours.
Right.
Especially in terms, of course, there's going to be infighting. Of course, there's going to be discussions about what we want in relationships. I'm not talking about none of that stuff, because, a lot of that stuff is entertainment. There's a lot of healthy black relationships that I know it's possible. But what I'm talking about is publicly, when our black women are being harmed by the state, when our black women are being incarcerated by the state, when their freedoms and lives are being taken by the state.
Right.
Black men, we got to show up, because black women, and even in black LGBT community, they show up. They hit the streets. They make noise. They lead the marches. They lead the rallies.
We are just as affected by the system.
And it doesn't,
as black men.
There's this idea that only our lives are in danger, and that is not true.
If you look at the school to prison pipeline,
right,
that affects black girls.
And even if you were it is true that we get locked up more frequently, but that plays a part in breaking up black families. Everyone wants to talk about the welfare and what people's expectations are, but you're not looking at the percentage of people who are going to jail for minimum crimes.
Right.
Weed selling, not paying your registration on your car. Like,
right.
people go to jail for that because they don't have enough money. Like, so it's an entire system. But I want to focus on this point again. I don't care. I don't care that you can only see one as your daughter. You have to see all of these black girls as your relative, as your daughter.
You shouldn't even have to see that.
But
you
some
should
people
just
do.
see their humanity. There have been black men that have been murdered by police. And when you've done enough digging, like, stuff has come out about them saying disparaging things about black women. They don't like black women. They were colorists. They were, whatever the case may be. The people who did not like that about them just kept it quiet and kept it moving.
So this is what I'm saying. Again,
also, despite them having those opinions, that doesn't mean that they deserve to be dead for holding something that a cop thought was a gun when it was really a cell phone in their hand. That doesn't mean that they deserve to die for having a hoodie on.
Right.
So if black men are going to be given the grace to be imperfect humans,
we're not. By the system, we're not. By black women, we are.
Right.
Yes, by black women, we are.
That should be reciprocated.
Yes.
And black women don't often feel like it is.
So, I kept saying, one of the things I kept saying with that particular situation, and this is the last thing I'll say, and I'll move on to the next one that I want to talk about, was it was not an either or, right? Like, the police officer didn't have to make a choice between who lived and died. He should be making a choice about how should I best get through the situation. I would rather the police officer take a second to try and do that and someone get injured than say I had to take a life.
Yeah, and for people to be talking about, if this person got stabbed and they were injured, then they would sue the police department. Do you know how much money the police department pays out on a yearly basis from city to city to families that they've killed black people?
Right.
And there's been no actual justice with the police officer being
there's no justice for that. There's
incarcerated or had any punishment for it. They pay out millions of dollars. If they got sued because someone got a cut from a butter knife in a fight that a police officer showed up to and didn't respond to by killing somebody, if they got sued because of that, they'd be okay.
Right. So
they have endless funding.
I do want to say that the officer was within his rights to do what he did. I'm sure that's part of their training. I'm sure that was legal. I'm sure I'm not calling for, I never asked for anyone to march against what this officer did. What I'm saying is do we think that should be legal? Is that how we want our officers to? Is that the realm of operation we're comfortable with officers having? We think it's cool for them to be able to decide who's gonna die and who's gonna live in an altercation like that. Because I don't trust them to do that. I don't trust officers to do that. I don't trust their training. I don't trust the system. I don't trust their intent. I don't trust them to have that decision making.
Prejudice, we would like to think that people in positions of power or positions where they have the ability to affect the outcome of people's lives, we would like to think that they have this higher calling or whatever, this level of discernment where they can put their prejudice to the side and do the right thing. Do the just thing, do the fair thing.
Right.
That's not how humans work.
Right.
It's very hard, no matter how logical you are
not aware
to
of their
separate
prejudice.
your prejudice from your behavior, even when you're trained as a professional. And if we're talking about policing,
it's very important.
Even if we're talking about medicine, the prejudice is built into the system.
Right.
The prejudice is built into what they're taught. It's built into the training. So how are you going to separate that from your policing,
before we move
action
on
that you take, the decisions that you make?
To lighter topics, there's two more things I want to talk about here. We cannot put the onus on black people. You can't be nice enough to a police officer. You can't drive the right way. There's nothing you can do when you're black. You're black. Like we saw the military, what's his official lieutenant? He was a lieutenant, I believe. He was pulled over and pepper sprayed, him and his dog, basically because they said his license plate was temporary. He had a temporary tag, and
he just bought the car.
He just bought the car. He had a temporary tag. It wasn't illegal, and because he was black, that's why They assaulted him. They want him to get out the car. They want him to lay down. He did not want to. He said, that's not necessary. Here's my hands. He was talking to them as cordially as he could, as professional as he could. He has training in the military. He's actively on duty in the military. And they pepper sprayed him. There was a boy walking around his neighborhood, and a white guy wants to step outside his house. He worked with the military. He wants to ask him what he's doing around here, and cause everybody comes outside asking him where he lives. He's just a black boy walking around. You can't get away from being black in this country. We have to change the systems.
And it's going to take time because this is hundreds of years of work
but black
that has
people,
been done to criminalize.
I'm talking specifically to black people. Stop trying to tell us that maybe he shouldn't have ran away. The boy who I think he did have a gun in Chicago. He was running away from the scene of a crime. He committed a crime. He's a 13-year-old kid. He was running away from an officer. The officer caught up to him, told him to turn around. He threw the gun, had his hands up, and when he turned around, the cop shot him.
Right.
He didn't have a gun in his hands then. He was no threat to the officer. Did he commit a crime? Yes. Did he have a gun? Yes. Did he deserve to die? No. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to see that. There's no justifying it. There's no saying, well, he shouldn't have a gun. All right, so here's the third point. You don't want there to be violence in the hood. I don't either. You don't like black on black crime. I don't either. You don't think the kid should have had a gun. He's a 13-year-old boy. Why does he have a gun?
The question
That's a great question.
Right.
Why does he?
Why does he feel the need to have a gun?
So people say, you always talk about when police do it. Yes, because when police do it, they don't go to jail. There's no justice. There's reasons why crime is higher in impoverished areas. And it's not just with black people. Crime is higher anywhere there's low income. Why is that? There's no opportunities. There's no funding. There's
low funding on education. Healthcare.
There's no clean water. I mean, there's a million reasons.
Services.
So
all of it.
So they say, Kyle, what do you do? Very easily. Here's the answer. Stop militarizing the police. Take that money. Let's pour it into the community. Let's give them some resources. Let's open some community centers, open some job centers. Let's get them a grocery store where they can have access to actual food that's healthy. Let's provide some community opportunities. Let's fund some businesses there that are owned by people that live there so they can hire people that look like them, that live there, so they have pride in what's going on where they live. The money is there. We're just using it wrong. It's not the only thing that makes it difficult is you don't want to see black people prosperous in this country. If you don't like that answer, then you have to ask yourself, am I racist? Do I not like black people? You'd have to ask yourself that question, because you're okay with black people living in areas of violence. You're okay with black people being over policed, overly brutalized, but you have an issue with the reallocation of funding that would, at one point
help alleviate those issues.
Help alleviate the core problem that is causing the crime. Help alleviate taking away some of the power of the structure that has been brutalizing us since the slave patrols. So, that's really all I wanted to say about that. I don't know if you have any final thoughts.
No, that's it. I mean, I feel like we need to dig a little deeper when we're questioning policing. Can't just look at the surface of what is happening. Chauvin
can go to jail. Every officer we just talked about could go to jail. They're not, they could be, and it's not just firing them. They could go to jail. They could get the sentencing we want. That won't stop the problem. We have to look at the
culture persists.
We have to look at how we are funding.
The culture persists, and until we are able to change that culture of policing,
what are we going to do about the system? What are we going to do about, because it's going to keep producing the same things until we change that. So yeah, that's that.
All right, then moving on. What was the next thing on our list of topics we have?
Well, okay, so if you watched our last episode, I did a Remembering DMX, and she was mad at me because apparently I didn't let her talk, which I have a tendency to do. This is something I am working on.
Yeah, we have so much to say.
I have a lot to say. And I feel bad for her for having to co-host with me on a podcast because it's a difficult thing to do. But I didn't let her.
To be fair, though, at the time, I was still working through my feelings about DMX because for me personally, DMX reminds me so much of my own personal experience with, with addiction. I'm not, I don't have an addiction or anything like that. But with my dad, right? So even my thing with everybody having so much to say about DMX being this great person or whatever, it really did make me think about my father in a sense, because my father's good. He's really good.
Right.
But when a person is addicted to drugs, the ways that they hurt the people around them, that's really who I was thinking about after DMX's passing. We're hearing that he OD'd, you know, that he was bad on drugs and stuff like that, is like the impact that addiction has on children, the impact that it has on relatives, the people that care about you and love you, whether it's close friends or whatever. So I was struggling with this DMX as the saint that everybody was elevating him to be, which is, but I mean, that's just the whole thing about being human. Nobody's all good and nobody's all bad.
Right.
And I was also thinking about the way that we actually treat people with addiction in our actual lives versus this thing that we do with celebrity, where we are able to praise them and able to have all these nice things to say, but maybe we're not all the time extending the same kind of grace and courtesy and compassion to people in our actual lives that have addiction. And it you know, if you've never been through having someone close to you dealing with addiction, then it's hard necessarily to understand the intricacies, because for someone like DMX to be addicted, all those kids and all that stuff, even in his behavior, right? Like having all those kids, there's a level of manipulation that comes along with addiction, which is why a lot of people find it so hard to deal with addicts. There's a level of distrust because there's so much lying that happens. And so while he might have been this great person to those outside of his immediate circumstance, his close family or whatever, I just really was holding space for the people closer to him who, yes, he's a good person and all that stuff, but they also have the burden of dealing with when he wasn't so good,
right?
When addiction was dominating his life. But I also, the other thing that I do love about, you know, the elevation of DMX and, you know, praising him or whatever is, if we're going to do that for DMX, we have to do that for other people, regular people that we know who aren't celebrities, giving people the space to be different, giving them the support they need to change, to do better, to be better. Isn't always easy. It's not the easiest thing to do at all. Sometimes it requires drawing boundaries, whatever the case may be. But he was able to turn his life around at some point, become more focused, religious, spiritual, all that stuff. And I just think that there's an opportunity. I don't know if he ever
was. I don't know if he ever did.
What?
I think he battled it.
But that's the thing, is a constant battle.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And addicts will tell you, you know, they're like one trigger away from if a recovering addict, they will tell you they're like one trigger away.
They say they're always in recovery.
Yeah, they're always.
That's what they say. You know, I don't have a, you know, maybe I'm addicted to Dr. Pepper.
You sugar addiction.
But, you know, I don't have it. I've never had that actual battle like with you know, a controlled substance or even alcohol or anything. But that's, you know, I've known people who had. And that's, you know, that's kind of the thing that's always said. It's like, you know, it's not over. It's not like it's done. It was a constant thing. And I think he's an example of somebody who was constantly working through that.
Yeah.
And I do think that, you know, we don't know, like, the thing with celebrity is you don't know them personally.
Right.
You know, and people, it's funny because they will say that, oh, I met this guy one time. He was so great. He's such a great person.
Right.
They met him one time.
Right.
It's
had
easy.
one encounter.
It's easy
to be nice.
It's easy to be nice for a few hours at most. Like, even if most people that met DMX.
And it's also easy to be nice to people who don't really know you and don't know your history. Or
they met him for 15 minutes, but they don't have any real relationship with him. Right. And even some people that did have a working relationship, having a working relationship with somebody
totally
is
different.
Completely different than sharing a life and sharing experiences in a way with that, a child or a family member would. It's completely different, and there's different expectations, and there's different sides of a human, right?
Yeah.
So I think the thing that I think about DMX, and the thing again is, I think he showcased that more than anyone.
Right, in his
music. He showcased his full humanity,
and that's why I think it
failures.
resonated with a lot of people, because people who were going through struggles, similar to that, whether it's addiction or any other,
being incarcerated, like he spoke to a lot of people.
Right. I think they felt seen and heard and felt like their story was being told, felt represented, felt understood by him expressing himself honestly and transparently and just being vulnerable in his art in that way.
Right.
So, I have to give his jacket in that regard. But for me, it just was really holding space
you have to do what?
That's a Bajan saying. Give Jackie jacket.
See, I
give
don't know.
Jack his jacket.
This is a new one. I had never heard her say that. I thought I heard all of them. I didn't hear that one yet.
You will never hear all. You will never hear all.
I hope so. Don't be holding out on no.
You won't hear all because, it has to be contextual. It can't just drop it when it's not appropriate.
Yeah, but I'm saying I'm going to hear all of them.
But yeah, I was really just holding space in my heart for. What
does that mean? Give Jack his jacket?
You're still on this?
I'm just thinking about it. Like, is it just because jacket has Jack in it? Is that why?
Maybe.
This is what I do with her on a regular basis. When she says these things, I ask her, like, what is that? Where does that come from?
Maybe, but give kudos.
I know what it means.
Due,
I
right?
know what it means. I'm just
give
wondering what the
jacket.
phrase means.
I mean, it sounds catchy. It sounds catchy. Give John his jacket.
No, you got to say
a Jack.
I guess, yeah. Yo, speaking of, so since then we lost Black Rob. If you don't know Black Rob is, I know you know Whoa. If you're from a certain age, like Whoa. Mm-hmm. He was on the Av getting blah, like Whoa. Everybody was saying that for a minute. We also lost Shock G, who many of you know from the Humpty Dance. He wore the glasses with the big nose, but he was also the creator of Digital Underground. If you don't know, Digital Underground is where Tupac got his start. Shock G was also a really dope hip hop producer. And I don't know if I don't think he, like DMX did get the recognition and the love from the fans before he died, like with the verses and everything. Yeah. It's kind of a DMX resurgence in the past few years. But I don't think people really knew much about Shock G, partially because like his Humpty character kind of overshadowed him publicly in a way, like people, but he was one of those dudes, like he had a vision for what music could be. He was a drummer. He was a talented musician. He made it, and it's funny, a lot of guys that start these groups, they also produce, they do a lot of this stuff, and they start these groups to try to put their friends on as well, but you can get lost in the sauce a little bit. Like people don't know that Shock G was the creative engine behind that, and they don't know all the things that he's worked on and done. And again, it was way too young. He was wildly talented, and as somebody who loves like alternative hip hop.
And there's something to be said about losing Black artists, especially Black men, at such a young age. Like we've seen so many go like before 50 or like in their 50s, and that's still young.
50s is young, man. Like I know it doesn't seem like it if you're a teenager, but 50 is young. It's like, you should be healthy. You should be able to do a lot.
Right. And I also think that speaks to kind of what we talked about a couple episodes ago with like really the reality of being an artist, right, is like you have this life and you did this thing at this time, and now you get to the end of your life and maybe you don't have all the resources that you need after maybe being in a bad deal, a bad record deal, like not really getting your just due from the work that you put in order to be able to take care of yourself further down the road.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say there's no pension plans for rap careers.
Right.
Like,
right.
you know, there's no training for rappers. There's no training for artists.
Right.
And that, you know, it's not, people often think about rappers. This happened, you know, TLC was one of the biggest groups in the world, and they didn't understand their deal. And
that's a story of a lot of people in the 90s that were artists. Like,
I'm going to dive into this. I wasn't planning on doing this, but
where you going? Where you going? Where you going?
Because I've been switching my position a little bit on because I was the Black Rob thing, right? So when Black Rob died, I believe he had pancreatic cancer. But I know he's been having health problems for a few years now. And a lot of people were saying, "Where's Diddy? This is Diddy's fault." And I kind of felt like Diddy abandoned him, but now as I'm doing more research and I'm thinking about it more, I don't know if that's the case. I think what happened was, and you know, so the other thing too, Diddy recently put out a statement with Revolt, talking about how these white corporations don't really invest in black media companies in terms of like they do unfair deals with black media companies and kind of take us for granted because we make up a large percentage of their consumers, but they don't pour that money back into who's advertising. We have huge
spending power.
Yeah, we have huge spending power, and they take it for granted. They don't pour those resources back into us or the businesses that are for us. They don't market to us. They don't spend with our companies. They don't put that money even into the black-owned businesses. So he made that statement, and there was a conversation being had about should he be able to say that when he's done his artist wrong. And I was thinking about this because first I was on the side. I've always said you could say that. Like I don't have but my question is, has he done artists wrong? And I don't know. Like,
well, I mean, look, if you're talking about someone who's going to be talking about black power and all this stuff or whatever and doing all that pro-black stuff, no. Diddy back then may not be Diddy now.
Right, he could have changed.
He could have changed or whatever. But I think at some point there has to be some level of, if you're a black label or whatever, you own that and you're doing these deals. Mm-hmm. And especially with the people that he signed back in the day, these were like teenagers, a lot of them. A lot of people were...
To be fair, he was not much older than them.
Right.
He was like the same age.
Right. But he knew...
This is what I'm getting
more
at.
Than they did.
This is what I'm getting at. So
he also knew that he was dealing with people who didn't know
this is what
he knew.
This is what my question is. See, and now is interesting to have this conversation because we have so much more ability to research on our own what a good deal might look like. You have so many more resources. And back then, you know, in the 90s, the internet wasn't a thing. So, you know, if an artist was given a piece of paper, especially a young black artist, they don't have access to lawyers.
Right.
Because I'm trying to think, like, you know, you hear these stories, and these things happen with white artists as well. Let's not, like, because labels have been taking advantage of artists and creators since the idea of intellectual property. Right. Like, that is how the business was made. But there have been people who have learned the business and then shifted it. Sam Cooke comes to mind. Berry Gordy comes to mind. You know, Smokey Robinson. There's people that understood how the music industry worked that were black and used it to build their empires. But even in the case of Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson, there have been some artists who were like Marvin Gaye. All the success he had died broke.
Right. He
did not have money.
So
is that Berry Gordy's fault?
But if you're talking about being pro-black, this is why people always say black capitalism is not going to save us from the system.
Right.
Right? Because you have to think about there has to be some responsibility to your people. This
is my question though. If I gave you the opportunity to have this platform, to have millions of fans, and that you still have that, right? You always have that. I'm just questioning, like, how much is it the owner of the label's fault? How much responsibility do they have?
I think
because you could say like, yes, look, I'm pro-black. I want black people to succeed. I'm trying to put black people in positions. If I put them in the position, if I get them the hit single, if I get them the fans, and they still, they get the money. Like DMX, for example. DMX was not put on by a black label, but he made millions of dollars. He had millions of dollars. Could have changed his life. He had. So this is what I'm saying. Black Rob had addiction. Black Rob was in and out of jail before he met Diddy.
Right.
So then Diddy gives him an opportunity and he doesn't know what to do with it. Is that Diddy's fault?
But when you're talking about some addiction, that's a totally different story.
I'm not talking about addiction. I'm talking about people. I'm using that as an example of how much of the responsibility falls on a label owner just because they're black.
If you're black, I think the least you could do is offer some type of education about what, especially if you're dealing with young artists who don't know anything. At least some basic form of education about what is happening here. Okay,
I mean that's a valid point. Like because when you look at what Jay-Z has done and what he has built with certain people. Like, okay, so you could look at Kanye West, the Kanye West route. Kanye West became one of the richest black people, started his own label. He signed other artists, Common, and he had the whole B Music group, a Good Music group with John Legend. Like that's how we heard of them. He learned from Jay-Z.
Right.
Same token, you had Beanie Siegel, who had State Property. Signed, that was in Philadelphia. Had a lot of Philadelphia artists. Doesn't work out. Beanie Siegel struggles. He ends up going back to jail for some time. Is that Jay-Z's fault? So what I'm saying is, and I'm sure those are very different relationships.
Yeah. I just think that going forward, I can't speak to the past and what people did, but I think now, especially in the age of social media and all this different stuff of as an artist being able to diversify what it is that you have to offer besides just your art in a single form.
State Property had clothing, movies. They were like, it seemed like they understood. I don't know what happened.
But they were doing it, but were they really doing it?
Right,
was the machine churning it out?
I would love to find out.
Did they know exactly what went into creating this other
Beans
product?
Freeway, if you're watching this, we've talked before. Feel free to hit me up. I'd love to talk about what happened because I would love to know that story. But what I'm asking here, so let's take it in a different direction for you. Me, as owner of Ingram Music Group, if I signed an artist and I put the paperwork in front of them and I'm trying to do what I think is an equitable deal, but I'm still putting the resources up, because what happens is labels have to put resources up. Like there's a certain amount of money you put up that you have to make money.
I don't think I commit unbiased response in this case, because I feel like I've been learning from you.
I'll paint the picture. I give someone a contract, they sign it, they're doing well, but they haven't recouped their resources. So now they start saying, yo, he's trying to do me dirty. Even when we're trying to do this, back to Mansa Media, there's been people who thought when I sent them what our contract was that we were trying to do them dirty.
Right.
And to be 1000% transparent, I'm trying to do the most to be as equitable as we can with everybody making a profit. Right. Like with everybody winning, I'm all about that. But still, so this is why I asked that question. How much?
But are you coming from a perspective of everybody thinking like you?
No, I'm not. I don't expect everybody to think like me. I don't expect everybody to think like me. That's not what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, it's a business. If you have an employee who doesn't, if you pay them their check and they take their check and they spend it all on video games and have no place to live, that's not your fault.
Right. I get that.
So this is what I'm saying. And I understand that. Yeah, I understand. So I was in the camp of people that was thinking, Diddy should do more. But then I started thinking about he has all these things he's trying to do. How can I put the blame on him for what happens with these artists? So the whole Mace deal, because I was thinking, dang, he should let Mace get his masters back. Apparently, the conversation went more along the lines of, hey, Mace, here's what the value of your masters is. I'll sell it back to you. That's not the same thing. That's not the same conversation that white labels have been having with black artists. For one.
But does Mace have the money to buy back his masters?
Is that Diddy's fault?
But if you own the masters.
No, he can still, because you can make money without so the masters only, so. to explain this.
So you're saying May should have gone on tour.
Yes.
Done all this stuff.
Yes. If you want to own your catalog, say, all right, cool.
Does May even own his name?
I'm going to do a Harlem World Tour. There's a million ways. Here's another idea. Mace, Cam, do a Harlem tour. Boom. Instantly. You have enough money to buy your master's back. I'm going to see that show. Y'all could do...
your points are valid.
Y'all could do Horse and Carriage. I don't think we've ever seen that live.
Your points are valid. I'm just always like, look, you have a multi-million, in some cases, billion-dollar corporation.
He's personally close to $1 billion. But
if you have a class where you calling all your artists and you're like, here's some business education, personal finance education or whatever, and run it for whatever. That's a great idea as well. Whoever wants to show up, shows up, and who doesn't.
That's a great idea as well.
And they can, empower themselves however they feel. Fine, but, there's different ways that you can do the right thing in a very small way.
I like that idea as well. So I just had that thought while we were talking about it because
I'm glad Kyle's learning about personal responsibility.
Can you guys hear Ryan?
Ryan said he's glad that Kyle is learning about.
I know all about personal responsibility, but they also do have a cultural and community responsibility. So the reason that this is even a conversation, right, is because when you're a successful black person, you owe more to your community than if you're white. It's just the way the world is. We need you more. We need you more. If you made it, if you're having success, we need you more. We need you to give back information. We need you to give back some resources. We need you to give back opportunities. It's just the way of the world. We're getting a guest appearance. Ryan is coming.
Ryan on the mic.
If we are responsible for the community, right?
Yes.
There are custodians of these resources.
Yes.
And the custodians are the people who are generating it and are able to maintain it.
Yes.
If you gave DMX all your money, the community loses all the money.
That would not be a smart.
To your point, real quick.
There's a disposition.
I want to say something real quick there. Allen Iverson's a perfect example of this. Allen Iverson in his deal with Reebok, I don't know if it was against, but they put in a stipulation that he could not get all his funding at one time because they didn't know if he'd be responsible enough. So he's still doing very well because he has this seed money that is coming out incrementally until he thinks he's like 55 or something. Then he gets a lump sum of cash.
Right.
And they saw that, and this was their idea of how to do that because they were giving him.
But who got that clause?
But that's not their responsibility.
His lawyer.
Right.
So he was being taken care of.
Right.
By his lawyer. But black people don't have access to people that care about them that way.
I just take issue with the general disposition that people with money are evil and are screwing people over. And as you are becoming a leader and owning things and having people come to you, I think you're realizing
I've always had
the big rich guy is not always the bad guy.
I've always had that understanding because I watched my dad. My dad had a label. Artists always had beef with him. They've always said, like, you're not doing this for me. And I'm like, yes, he did. He gave you the same thing he gave everybody else.
Right.
So I've always understood that perspective. But when it gets magnified, when you're talking about people like Diddy. Celebrities, because celebrity magnifies everything. And I think it's worth having the conversation. And I think it's important to hear it come from me because I'm somebody that is all about community. I think it's important that you understand that even though you have these black heroes, and I think it's important that we have them. And I look up to Jay-Z and what he's done in terms of his business. I look up to Diddy in terms of what he's done, how he's been able to go from, being Puff Daddy, a producer, to having his own brands, to having what was Sean John
charter school too, or
Sean like John, and I'm just talking about just entrepreneurial,
right?
Sean John, and then Revolt, and then he has the Ciroc. Like Ciroc is a legitimate alcoholic beverage company, like that competes with. That's not an industry black people are supposed to be in. If you know the history of alcohol production, we're not supposed to be allowed in that. No, we've had our own moonshine in segregation. White people, they didn't want us to have white people buying Ciroc. He got his Ciroc commercials on Super Bowls. This is what I'm saying. Like, that's a win that we have not seen. So that I respect that. At the same time, when you have that amount of success, and I think that the other thing, I think that everyone is aware of this. You owe things to your culture. Black people are so far behind in terms of wealth, ownership, economics, education. We're so far behind, and it's by design. It's because of it's because of the not just slavery, but it's because of all the systems that have been put into place, from Jim Crow to redlining to how they even fund our districts. Like, it's intentional. Right. So when we have somebody that makes it, they do have a responsibility. But what is the limit of that? I
think the thing here too to note is that, and this is what people have been critiquing people like Diddy and stuff like that come out talk about, voting and all this stuff or whatever.
Right.
Like, as a celebrity, it's important that you are able to provide a platform for the people who have been doing the work.
Right.
And don't just step in and overshadow the work that's already been done because you have this one singular message and idea that you think is important. Like, give a platform to the people who know about whether it's activism and working on the ground or whatever.
Weirdly
the case
enough,
may be.
What was weird? I think it was Selena Gomez. I believe it was Selena Gomez. When last year, when the George Floyd protest was happening, she just let other people who were working take over her account and speak to her. Like 20, 40 million. I don't know how many followers she has. It's plus 20 million. It's over that, which is ridiculous amount of people. She let them have direct access to her Instagram, not only go live on there, but she would put their posts on there,
right.
Which was a novel way of using your platform as a celebrity to highlight people who are actually doing the work and have more knowledge.
And bring awareness.
Yeah, and have more knowledge in this space than you do.
Right.
When I was doing my Voodoo Man series, for a long time I was thinking about how could I talk about these issues, especially with things that I'm not like. While I feel like I know a lot of stuff, I know that I'm not expert on many topics.
Right.
So my idea was I would talk to experts and ask them the questions that I was curious about, and give them a platform to share what they're doing. That was always my idea, and I think that is an excellent point that celebrities and people need to do with that.
Yeah, and that's like Critical said last week, where it was what was he talking about when Versus started and it was producers and then the artists come on and they want to be the star of the show or whatever the case may be, and then they gotta
that's what artists do,
right? But it's not always the time or the place. Sometimes you can just let your platform be used for people who know better than you do.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear from, people who are watching. I'd love to know what you think. Like, what is the limit of responsibility for those of us
put it in the comments.
Who really have made it. Because, there is a point like, if Diddy didn't do anything else, he's good. His family's good. They have reached generational wealth. And now it's like, at what point should he?
And that isn't to say that he isn't doing
he's doing
stuff.
A lot. He's doing a lot.
But just with this particular situation, what is his
and
responsibility?
Do they have a personal responsibility
to his artists who were on his label before, who are now, whatever the case may be? Yeah.
So I think that was fun.
I think along those lines, maybe we could also talk about a little bit your philosophy on
celebrities?
No, people supporting you.
Oh, right.
When you're not a celebrity. Because I saw I think it was a tweet this morning where someone was saying, like, people will more readily support a celebrity who's doing something that little you in your little local town was doing first.
Right.
And they'll support that celebrity, but then they only support you when you pop off and you get,
or you take a picture with that person.
Right.
We working, #we working. You got to put that so they understand.
So how do you deal? You have a philosophy on, expecting support from people that when you're an artist or creator.
Don't expect it. No, the reason she wants me to talk about this because when she was first doing stuff, like when she was stepping out of the realm people knew her as, in terms of now she was stepping into guided meditation. We were doing music, and I could see a little bit of frustration about people that she knew that she would expect to have supported her,
right?
In those endeavors, they didn't, and I was trying to tell her that that was something that me and my sister both went through when we first started. Like, we were like, we're making music, we're doing videos. How come the people around us that we know personally that, have seen us, how come they're not supporting us? How come they don't, is it that they don't like our stuff? And it took a few years really for me to get through it. It really crystallized the concept that, one, you just can't care. They're not your fans.
Right.
Those
That's
are
not your
that
audience.
is not your audience.
It's not your audience until
No, they're
you
never
pop off.
They're never your audience. They're never your audience. They don't see you that way. That's not how they see you.
That's a good point.
That's not their perspective of you. They will, my boys that I hoop with, no matter how famous I get or whatever level I reach or whatever movie I produce, they're never going to see me like they see The Rock, like, or Jason Momoa or Spike Lee, or they're never going to see me like that because they don't know them. There's separation. There's a thing about them, like, and that's the flip side of that, right? Like what Calvin was talking about when he was here. His brothers don't care who he works with. They're his brothers.
Right.
So there is value to that, right?
Right.
And we look for, and now that doesn't mean that his brothers don't support him. Their support looks different. It doesn't show up.
Like I'm sure, like I know that
it doesn't
family
show
support
up
and
the
all that
way
stuff
that
looks
you
different.
would like it
but
to.
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about people whose support looks different from them actually responding to your art directly. I'm talking about people who don't
see it. They don't share it.
They won't
hit the
share
like
it.
button.
Like the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, they won't hit the like
do.
button. They won't share it. They would, they would share a celebrity, like you said, they would share a celebrity that's doing the same thing.
Right.
They're not. You can't care about that. You literally, if you're an artist, you cannot care.
Speak to the people.
About
Speak to the people.
You cannot care about the people that don't support you. You can't do it. I don't care if it's your mom. Now, and I'm not saying you don't care about your mom. I'm saying you can't care that she doesn't rock with you.
Laugh.
No, you can't care if she doesn't rock with you.
She'll come around.
Even if she doesn't.
Maybe not.
This is what I'm saying. You can't think about that. You have to focus on the people that do. You have to find the people that do. Ask yourself, is what you're making really for them, or do you expect them to support you because they know you?
Right.
And they might not like what you do.
Right.
They might hate what you do. I've had friends tell me, we put out a project and my boy's like, yeah, I listened to it. I just didn't like it. That's hard to hear. I had to ask myself, what does he like? No, I'm not even trying to play him. What does he like? Like, because when I look at what he likes, of course he doesn't like what I did. That's not what I do.
Right.
That wasn't meant for him. That doesn't mean we're not friends. He likes what he likes. At the same time, I've had strangers that loved it. They're messaging like, I can't believe y'all should be bigger.
Yeah.
I should sell my merch to them.
Right.
Like, focus on the people that love you and don't take it to the point of, well, they must, like, you can't take it personal. You cannot take it personal when you step into any public profile, and that's anything, right? I always think about, like, imagine being a national level politician. The amount of hate that people, like, they would be like, why would you say that? Why would you be on TV? Why would you sign this? What does their family say? They still have family, they have friends. Their friends, their family and friends might not share their same political opinion, like, or they might want them to do stuff. Like, no matter what you do, if you reach a certain level of success, like
now that we're talking about it, it also brings up the question. We were watching Joe Budden today, and one thing he said was like, what do I owe you?
Oh, so I didn't know you want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it. I'm just referencing
but you brought it up.
No. We're not talking about it today.
But you have to give them context.
No, but we haven't finished watching the episode.
That's okay. Say that.
Okay, we haven't finished watching the episode.
Disclaimer,
we don't need to.
We haven't finished watching the latest Joe Budden episode. She used to hate that I watched Joe Budden.
He sucked me in.
But she enjoys the show now.
Do I?
Yes, you do, because you watch it with all your attention. So on the latest one, if you haven't been following the drama, Rory and Mal, who are his co-hosts, have been absent for like 6 weeks due to some kind of internal beef. They came back like yesterday and they were all discussing it. And it was a beautiful example of human friendship because they were having an actual debate about what is friendship, especially men. Right. Especially men from black culture. Rory's white, but he's in black culture now. So especially men in black culture, what is the value of friendship? What does friendship mean? What is expected of friendship? And how that friendship is complicated.
I think this is a better conversation to have than digging too deep into Joe Budden or whatever. But
no, it is. But this is what I'm saying.
This is the better conversation.
But that's what they were. That's why I was liking it.
How do black men's friendships from, like, how deep do they go? How meaningful are they?
The other aspect of it for their conversation was how that friendship is complicated when you involve business.
Right.
But yeah, I think it was really interesting to watch how they were navigating what is really valuable and what means, because it's easy to have. I think it's easier to have friendships when you're all broke. Everybody's broke.
Right.
Like there's no complications. And as money comes in, now you start.
I wouldn't even say is when people perceive that you have money.
Well, you would know if it's your boy. If it's your boy, not to say you're checking his pockets, but if how he's doing.
No, but what I'm saying is people see you doing things and assume that because you're doing X, Y, and Z,
right, that
you are making more money.
Sure.
Or making more money than them.
Well, that too. But I mean, theirs is more complicated because the question of who owns the podcast. But what I was enjoying about their exchange was you had Mal, who had the idea that he doesn't care if they ever pod again. He didn't care about none of that. His thing was he wants respect as a friend.
Right. He's all about the principle of it. The
principle of it. And Joe's response was, what do I owe you respect? Right. What do I owe you?
Right. But and that draws back to the conversation we were having before, is like when you talk about people that know you, supporting you, what do they owe you?
What do they owe you? And I don't think to be a friend they have to love what you do. No. I do think that to be a friend they should be honest with you. I think to me what I value in my friends is honesty. I do value respect. You have to respect, but and it's not that you have to like it, but what does the share cost you? Mm-hmm.
Right.
And this is like, so there's different levels of friendship too.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand that.
And
I think you have
sometimes
you
can be in a friendship and y'all be at two different places with it, because one person might feel
a friendship
like
is
y'all
like,
are
people don't want to talk about it, but friendships are relationships, and there's differences between romantic relationships and friendships, but there's a lot more similarities.
Right.
There's a lot of similarities, and especially men don't like to talk about that because I guess it feels weird to say like, you have there's crossover between them, but there is, in terms of what your expectations are, how you communicate, and what you expect.
And you could even argue, and this is something that a conversation has come up for women a lot, especially dealing with, having marriage and relationships prioritized and thrust on people. Some people don't want them, women particularly. It's how do you, like valuing your friendships just as much or more than your intimate relationships, especially if they're not serious, like tell me marriage or like a long term.
So friendships you have to value them,
right?
Like and I think this is more pertinent with women, where they kind of throw away their friendships when they get with somebody, and I don't think that's healthy. Your partner can't be everything,
right?
Your partner's not going to be everything.
And a lot of times when things don't work out,
you
go back to your friends, and they're the ones that you lean on.
What I thought you were going to say is that friendship breakups are more devastating.
Yeah.
Like if you lose one of your friends, if I lost one of my boy, like my real boy, and this, so I got to back up a second. I was about to say there's levels to friendship. Mm-hmm. You have friends that maybe you went to school with them, maybe you're friends in passing. What do you expect out of them? Next to nothing. I don't really know you. You have friends that you might call sometimes. Maybe, you might invite them out to an event. That's cool. The expectations are a little bit more. But then you have what I like to call my inner circle, right? Like my inner circle, I expect a lot of. I hold them to, I have high expectations and high standards because that's what I'm going to give them.
Right.
Like if you could call me, after midnight and with some kind of whether it's a thought or you need me to show up.
You can call me to pick you up from the airport.
Right. If you can call me and say like, yo, this went down and I need you to come help, or my car broke down. And
right.
Like, you can call me for that. I expect the same thing. And I think people have to understand this.
You really have to have discernment with that, because
this is what I'm saying.
People be at different points with it.
I think people have to understand you don't have a lot of those friendships. Right. There's not a lot of people I'm answering the call after I'm not answering. I don't know. I'll talk to you later. I have a lot of people.
I didn't say a lot, but
I have a few people.
People that you answer.
There are people. There are people. That's what I'm saying. I do have people. It's not a lot. It's not a lot of people. I'm answering your call. Like whatever we got to do is what we got to do. Like that. It's a very, and I think you have to, the expectations of like sharing things and supporting anything I put out, no matter what it is, because you're my boy, is limited to them only.
Right.
That's less than the fingers I have. Like I expect them to rock with whatever I'm doing. If I hit them up, like I hit Smeef up one time to go DJ. He's not a DJ. I just needed somebody to press play. Like he was like, all right, cool. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll be there. There's levels of friendship that there's, I don't expect everybody to, and even if they don't like it, they might say, bro, I don't really like it, but they'll still share it.
Right.
Because they rock with you or that level.
Right, as a person. And they want to see you succeed.
And I think that's what people expect from everybody they know when you're an artist. They're like, well, I know all these people. The friends on your Facebook, whatever that number is, that don't matter when you're putting out a song. It has no relevance to what you're putting out a song. It's not until that and this is what artists have to understand, is you have to build an audience. Your friends aren't your audience. Your friends aren't your fans. Your family's not your fans. Your family's not your audience. Your audience is your audience.
Right.
From your audience, there might be, say your audience is 200 people when you get started. That'd be a lot if you just get started.
Yeah.
You have 200 people. Out of that 200 people, you might have 20 real fans that are like excited about.
Buy everything.
They'll buy everything. They'll show up to everything.
Share everything.
If you have a show in Pittsburgh and Philly, they'll come to both. Getting those people is valuable, and you have to really value that, and you have to understand that is one right relationship dynamic. But yeah, expectations is important, and I think I do want to say this before I don't know where we're going, because I don't even know where we're at on this list, but I do want to say to black men, I think it's important that we have communication amongst each other as friends, and yeah, we have to start doing that.
I think generally, as just culturally, and I guess this is most places, you don't really get taught to treat your friendship as delicately or as important as a romantic relationship.
Right.
So a lot of people don't really know how to handle conflict.
Right.
I've had to learn over, and this is something that I'm still working on, and I'm working on communication with you, and
right.
I've put a lot of effort into that in my relationship. But yeah, there's some friendships I could work on putting better communication into, in terms of when you feel like, all right, this wasn't cool, or you don't have to have a disagreement. Sometimes
you have to check in. Sometimes you got to apologize. Sometimes you got to talk, and just be like, yo, and I'm not saying anything heavy. You just be like, yo, bro, my bad. Right. Sometimes you got to my bad it. And not let it
ego, man,
and not let it roll over into months of not talking and become bigger than it is. The thing when we were watching the episode, I was thinking this is really interesting to see, because you rarely get to see men having this conversation, and there was tension watching it.
Oh yeah,
there was a lot of tension. It's clear that these wounds are still not fully healed, and they were working through it. And I think that was really cool to see, because we need to see that, and we all have to do that. It's better to me if I have someone that's really my boy. And if you know anything about Joe and Mal specifically, it's funny because my boy T Dot, aka Dascal, on Instagram posted this picture from a show back in Jersey, like 15 years ago, and he was back there with Mal while Joe was performing. And I was thinking dang, that's crazy, because now they're not even they can't even do a podcast together because of whatever's happening. But so I'm glad to see them come back together and piece it up, because they have a lot of history, and it's whack to lose all that history because you can't have a sit down and just say,
but also you got to realize sometimes some things got to call it quits.
Yeah, sometimes you do. Sometimes
you don't always have to walk away not being cordial or beefing, or
it doesn't have to be
hate
beef.
This person or
sometimes
anything
people
like that.
just like
sometimes
relationships, people just grow apart. Sometimes people grow apart even in friendships, and that's okay too, and it doesn't have to be beef. And that's something that I think Mal expressed very well. He's like, I was fully prepared to, if we had to end a friendship, be what it is. And, it wouldn't be no beef or whatever, but that's what he said. And I think that was really interesting to see. It was cool to watch. And it made me think sometimes, we have to communicate better with our guy friends.
Right.
Yeah. But I didn't know you wanted to talk about that.
I did not.
I didn't watch the whole
episode.
episode.
You wanted to. You was
I
hyped.
did, because next week it's going to be old.
You don't know. This might
week-
turn into therapy for them.
Next week, Kevin Samuels is going to say something, and everybody going to be on that. Yeah, that dude had a show called... The title of the episode was called Woman 37 BBW Once High Value Man. 3 kids, once high value man. I was like, get this guy out of here.
I cannot.
Was the title.
We're not giving him any more free publicity.
That was the title. You got to. That's Ryan's boy.
No.
Kevin Samuels, come talk to Ryan.
Ryan
got the
can
bread.
do that on Ryan.
Yeah,
Got the
you got to
Bread
do an
podcast.
episode on Ryan Got the Bread. I'll produce it. It'll be lit. I'd love to see y'all. You know I'm going to hop in that episode. You already get that one. What else we got on the list?
Well, the last thing we have here is your existential fatherhood crisis.
Right,
so let's hear
See,
about
I
it.
forgot about that. Oh,
And
my
then
goodness.
that's a wrap.
Oh my goodness. So, if you're not aware, if you're just watching this clip, and if you haven't been following us, we are having a baby. Baby Skyns is in there, in her belly, pushing around, kicking around.
Yes.
That's my boy. We're having a son, and over the past, since this pregnancy has started, I started off good. You
were so sure of yourself. I'm fine.
I was
good.
fine. I was good.
I don't feel no anxiety. I'm ready. I'm good.
It's not,
I'm good.
and it's not anxiety that I feel. Maybe it's a
that's
little
not
bit
why
anxiety.
you're calling it, but that's what
Maybe
it is.
that's what it is. But in the past month, really a month, I've been having an existential crisis about I've been questioning everything. Been questioning whether or not I'm prepared on every level to have a child, to have the responsibility of another human's life, to try to guide them, give them the principles and foundation of what they need to succeed and have a happy life. I've been questioning, what is life? And this is why I've been saying it's an existential crisis, because one morning I was eating oatmeal and I looked at my hands and thought, how can I control my hands? This is crazy. Like, human existence is crazy. Human existence, we take it for granted. We take for granted that we're born into this world and all these things, if you're a fully able person, all these things work. Even if you're disabled, right. I think sometimes disabled people may have a bigger glimpse into the miraculousness that is life, because you take for granted when things work.
Yes.
Like, if your car never breaks down, you never ask yourself how your car works. You just drive it. And that's what most people are doing with their lives. They're just driving
and their bodies.
Not thinking about what is going on here. So as I'm thinking about the child's eyes developing in their ears, and they can hear now, and they respond.
Yes.
They respond to touch and my voice. I'm thinking, like, what is going on? Like, and I started to say this last episode, right? I said, like, childbirth was unnatural. It's the most natural thing, but it's unnatural. And I just felt, when I said it, I was like, this isn't the conversation I want to have with guests, because I really need I need some time to try to expound on what I mean by, if you think about even what is life, how do you define it? Like, we are making a life. There's life brewing and stewing and growing in there. How does that happen? Not scientifically, like, yes, I understand sperm, egg, yes, we get it. But that's crazy. Like, if you just take a step back from how you live.
The science also supports the level of miracle that it actually is, because I don't think a lot of people realize that, initially your body can read pregnancy as
a foreign object.
Right.
Yeah.
And it develops an autoimmune response.
It's
right. And then you are your body grows a whole organ.
Right.
To support and protect this being from being attacked by the rest of your body. And also, like, you're growing a whole organ.
It's crazy. So I feel like Dr. Manhattan from The Watchmen. If you ever watched The Watchmen, if you watched the movie, I love the series, but I loved it for different reasons. If you watched the movie Watchmen, I feel like Dr. Manhattan when he went to Mars. And he had to go all the way to Mars.
Spoiler alert.
It's been out for years. There's no spoilers. If you haven't watched The Watchmen at this point, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Watch it.
Go watch it. He goes to Mars, and like, he's up there because he's done with humanity. He's like, everybody's regular. He's done with it. And it wasn't until it clicked that, when people are born, that's miraculous. Like he was thinking about his girlfriend and all the trauma and the chances of her being born as her and how slim it was.
Right.
He was like, that's a miracle. And that's what brought him back to earth. This is where I'm at right now. I'm thinking all these things.
And to be honest, I mean, not to be morbid or anything, like it's not done until it's done.
It's not done until it's not done until it's done. But even even the process,
right? That's what I'm saying.
Of us getting, of me being me, you being you. Like there's so many things that have to. And I've just been questioning everything. Like, and, you know, I know that a lot of fathers, I guess, and this is another conversation that men don't really have. Like everyone talks about the journey of birth for a woman, but like a lot of my boys are going through having babies, and we be stressing. All of us collectively have had our different ways of stressing out. Whether it's we're stressing about how we're going to provide financially, that's the common conception. Right. Everyone's like, "Oh, you got it," but I think it's more than that. I think there's more thoughts about. Maybe you need
to get some of your dad friends on here and have that.
Maybe
conversation.
We do, because you know everyone has different things. Like you question, what do you want your child? What do you want to do for your child? What is your role in the child's life? What are you going
What are you going to learn from your child?
Listen, I'm already learning.
What is your child going to teach you?
Right. But I don't even think that's what I don't know what they're thinking. I know, here's what I've been thinking. I've been thinking about what can I do to improve upon the life that I had for my child. And I think that's probably a common idea.
Right.
Is here's what I had. How can I make sure that they do better than I did?
Right.
And that
also
is
make them
a better person.
A better person.
Like trying to make someone better than you is like
citizen of Earth.
Right, a better human. How can I make them better than I was? What can I give them to make them better? But at the same time, not put pressure on them to be anyone but themselves.
Yeah.
What questions am I going to, if they ask me what's the moon, what am I going to say?
I don't know. Go to Google and figure it out.
No. You got to tell them something. You can tell them, like, I don't want, eventually I want to tell them, but, back to my existential crisis, think about the internet. Think about the systems we have in place. This stuff is magic to, most people. Sure, you could explain it, but it's magic. Think about it. All right. I saw this on TikTok. This girl was playing a record, like a physical album. And she was like, how does this work? Think about this needle is on this piece of vinyl and music's coming out. How does that work? How do they do that? And I thought, you can press a little box, your phone. You can press a button on here and music comes out. From where? That you accept that, but you don't think it can come off of vinyl? They're both crazy. So much that happens we take for granted is crazy. I am not taking for granted that this birth is miraculous and magical. I'm not going to take for granted that when this baby gets here, this is a new life. Mm-hmm. And I think and also a lot of it has to do with watching my nephew, right? I look at how he looks at the world, like the things that he finds interesting. He loves lights. Like he loves light switches. He loves seeing different color lights. And it just makes me look at it like, yeah, that's crazy. Light is crazy. I understand why you're making that face. Like you flip the switch, he goes, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's the face you should make. We should not be taking for granted this stuff. And this is all part of just this whole thing I've been having past few weeks. It's just been one. I mean, yes, it is. There is part of it that is anxiety, but that's more of like the trying to prepare, trying to figure out what can I do, what my role is going to be. How can I advocate for you? How can I make, how can I make everything better for him? What am I going to do? But also part of it is just like, I just don't even understand. Like, I've been so busy doing all these things and making all these things and being a person that I forgot all of this stuff is crazy.
Just take a moment and take it in.
I do. That's what I've been doing, but it's crazy. You ever just look up at stars? What the heck is that?
Beautiful. Gas.
What is going on?
Well, that's Kyle's existential fatherhood crisis.
I don't understand anything. I don't understand anything.
Well, the more you know, the more you realize
the more you know, you don't know. Yes.
No. So that's where you're at.
I said to you the other day, and I know you thought, she's like, can you give me some water? And I was like, what is water?
Oh my gosh.
Like, yo, this is not an act. I've really been having like a crisis over.
You have.
Like, I was like, what is water? Most of the planet is water. We need water to drink. Most of our bodies are water. Where does water come from? It doesn't come from anywhere. It's recycled only on this planet. As far as we know so far, is we have a planet that has a system that creates water that some of it is drinkable for us to live. That is crazy.
Most of it isn't.
It's crazy. Anyway.
I
just want people to know how crazy it's been for me personally.
Okay.
Maybe somebody else will think like, yeah, that's.
I think that if any of Kyle's dad friends are watching, you should definitely come on here and have a talk about your process.
Tell me about your process, or drop a comment.
And your experience.
Tell me about
what you were thinking. I think you need a show for it.
You think we need a dad show?
I think you need a dad, like a dad episode, because you don't really hear about, you don't see men sitting down necessarily talking about from pregnancy through the birth to fatherhood. Seen a couple times, but it'll be interesting to hear, especially in our age group and stuff like that. New dads.
I'm down to do that. Hit me up if you want to. So drop a comment and let me know. If you want to come on here and talk about your experience of fatherhood. If you had any existential crises, or what your thoughts were, what you did to try to prepare. If you took classes with your girl, or if you just said, I'm gonna.
But really, how you felt.
One of the things
I really want to know.
One of the things I know that's been bothering you is I've been really focused on trying to get all of my business done. I've been like, so I know when her due date is around, and I don't want to have anything to do except for be there for her at that point in time. But
at the same
time, I've been so busy trying to get everything finished and do all these things now that I have not been there for her in the way that she had wanted me to be there.
Correct.
And she has been upset with me about this. And, it made me realize that I have to do a better job of balancing my priorities. Because like, in my mind, right, my priority is I'm doing this for you. I'm trying to get all this stuff done so that I can take all this time off and just be there.
But this is an issue that a lot of people have, and you hear kids talking about it afterwards. It's not just provision financially.
Right.
Like, there's other factors and facets to being a dad that are necessary. So it is a balancing act. I don't need you to be perfect or get it right all the time.
Right.
But there does need to be some balance.
Yeah.
There does.
So,
because I am a human being as well.
Right. So,
and even when you're focusing on business, you're missing some of it. Like, you're missing these moments as well. Like, these last moments that we have, just the two of us before the baby gets here.
Yeah. It's a interesting journey. I'm, still
you're learning as you go. I'm trying. I'm working on my grace and compassion.
That's what I think parenthood is all about, is learning as you go and adapting to the situations and doing what you can. So I'm looking forward to it. With all that being said, I am looking forward to meeting my son. I'm looking forward to showing him all these things. Like, I have all these songs I want to play for him, all these movies, all these places I want to take him, all these ideas I want to talk to him about. Like, just the thought about that just makes me emotional. It gets me excited. I
think you're going to be a great dad.
It's going to be fun.
But before we get there, you need to be a good partner.
I got to do more.
To be fair, you are a good partner.
I got to do more foot rubs.
Yes. Good Lord. Especially if you're going to have me climbing these stairs. But yes. Along those lines, we're hoping that the next episode after this one will be with a doula and hopefully a midwife.
Yes.
And we'll be diving into, recently it was Black Maternal Health Week. And we will hopefully be able to dive into, the whole process of birthing for Black people in this country, and the challenges that we face, the complications, what is a doula, what is a midwife, why you might need one of those if you are Black, if you can afford it, what resources are available for us to tap into outside of the traditional medical system. And when we're talking about birthing, concerns, all those things.
Yeah, the rate of infant death and the death of black women in pregnancy, black infant death and black women in pregnancy is like 3 times higher.
Yes,
than
white women. Yeah,
and a lot of that has to do with them not listening to black women, them not prioritizing their concerns or their voices. And this is part of the reason that we want to talk to some doulas about how you can try to make sure that
and how to navigate the system during pregnancy and advocate for yourself. Because even for me, it's been a process.
As we've been talking about earlier, the medical system has inherent racist bias, especially with black women, even more so than black men in medicine. But partially, I think, because black men never go to the doctor or hospital.
But I mean, just black people in general. Yes. You know, there's like
even with black doctors, there's a whole bunch of
mistrust.
Yeah,
and it's not unfounded, especially when you do talk to black doctors who are aware of the prejudice that exists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when they go to medical school and the things that they're being taught, and they realize, well, what do y'all think black people can handle pain?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that they don't even. Yeah,
what
they do
think
that.
You know. And that's a real thing that's a real bias and prejudice that exists that has fatal results for black people who seek help and care in the medical system. So, hopefully if everything works out, we'll be able to bring that episode to you. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think it'll be very insightful and informational.
Yeah. So look for that.
That's it. That's all I got.
All right. Well, this was episode 5 of the Skyns podcast. Yeah. Shout out to 100B Plus merch. You can get that at whoisbianca.com.
Yes.
I don't know where my boy Kev has been at, but we're going to keep shouting out that hustle sauce. Make sure you check out Mansa Media LLC.com and check us out if you want to get into podcasting. Reach out to us. You can reach out to
Kingram, Ryan Got the Bread, Apollo, Jay, Don.
Yep. You can shout out any of us and we'll get back to you. But yeah, we are looking for creators. And that's it, y'all.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah. Peace.